Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Our program will begin shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Greek representative to the EU Parliament, Eva Kaili.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. I have to check if I have my presentation here. That's not mine. I'll give them a few minutes. So first of all, let me thank you for having me. The first time I entered a space that 2-3 years ago where they were discussing about blockchain, when they find out I was a politician, I felt really unwelcomed. And I really felt lonely being a woman in the space. So now I think much progress has been done. I've been working in the European Parliament blockchain, not as scary as it sounds, because in contrary of what US and China has been doing, we are quite positive and supportive of what is taking place, of this revolution. So we do believe it's a transforming world. We are working a lot with the digitalization, artificial intelligence, financial technology, fintech solutions, and of course blockchain are disrupting everything, but we're trying to see the positive disruption of these technologies. If you heard recently the Cambridge Analytica case, I think you understand how sensitive the European Parliament is with our data. And data is the essence of, it's the fuel and the gold for artificial intelligence. We have the GDPR discussion going on. It's taking place immediately. And a new discussion about how blockchain can comply with GDPR is also on the table. So there is a bit of resistance to change and to adapt and to adopt blockchain. But I think the potential that we are identifying is amazing. I can just give you maybe a brief presentation of how I entered the space. I am initially from Greece. I represent Greece in the European Parliament. And after the crisis hit the world, it hit very hard also my country. I have to admit that I was not familiar with the banking sector. I was an architect. I realized, though, that our money were not safe. The centralization of the banks, especially after what happened in Cyprus, when one day friends of mine suddenly lost all the savings and the pensions, showed me I heard about Bitcoin as a virtual currency that the banks do not like, and I thought it was an opportunity to explore this as a solution. So I asked the question to Mario Draghi of the European Central Bank, asking him how does he think we should use the virtual currencies. So his response, he responded to me saying that we are monitoring this technology, we know it exists, we don't consider it a currency, this is the case until today, but we know it's there. The same day he sent me the letter, the European Court of Justice actually made a decision about virtual currencies and said we treat it as a legal tender, so this means there are VAT exemptions. So you see the contradictions already 2 years ago. After that, we worked on the virtual currencies report, trying to see how we're going to deal with this technology. It was a monitoring approach, hands-off. We have an observatory run by the Consensus, the amazing team here. They run this observatory trying to find out which are the best solutions and the potential of the technology and come up with recommendations. So I think that the next step will be, I am working on the resolution for blockchain, trying to have a positive approach. This means we talk about virtual currencies. We don't avoid to name it a currency. We don't look at it as commodities, but also as means of payments. We also try to talk about the ICOs, not just as securities, thing that is happening worldwide, but we also keep our options open. So we allow new definitions. So we say there are utility tokens. What kind of utility tokens? It's something we're going to observe the next 2 years. I recently asked for an observatory for ICOs because the hype is there and it's big. Just on the hype, let me tell you that a friend of mine, you know, in Gibraltar, they're working a lot. They have already some legislation. They know what they're doing with the ICOs. And two young guys, 15 years old, millionaires, they made like 10, 15 millions on an idea that they had. So they approached a friend of mine who's a lawyer there, and they said, so we had a good idea. We put the white paper out, and we raised 15 million. Are we in trouble? So you understand that they needed legal consultation because they were scared. They didn't know what to do with this money. They were just 15 years old. They couldn't even have their own bank account to remove it if they wanted, to take the fiat. So this is what we have to do in the European Parliament. We have to give them legal certainty. There's been a study, an ongoing study from some universities, especially I think MIT, about the volatility of the prices. And I think they have found a model that connects the volatility to the regulatory issues. So where there is no legal certainty or something on the news that disrupts this certainty, suddenly the price goes up or down. So we need legal certainty. We need also legal certainty for smart contracts. I've also called for that, so I think we're going to move very fast in Europe. It's not very easy to explain it to politicians. It's very difficult for, I think, even for all of us to reach a common definition, but we are trying. One thing that I do when I talk to my colleagues is to tell them that we actually have hidden fees. So the banking sector, when they do transactions or when you do a payment, all the transaction fees, the hidden fees, the cost, is around 130 billion per year. So this is money lost, it's friction, there are problems there, and we're not good at solving this. So I'm telling them that there could be a potential or a possibility to change things, and maybe to take a part of how the banks work and give it to people that have innovative and smart solutions. So the approach in Europe, at least, it's to be business neutral and innovation friendly. I don't know if it's worth for me to mention like a couple of more things that we see potential there, but definitely fintech, and then also government, supply chains can change. I can say that for us, building trust is essential, and it's connected, of course, to having to use blockchain for identification and certification. So what happened when the crisis hit us was a complete loss of trust. We already have results now with, you see, you know, I'm in US, so basically you know what's happening with elections. You get results that you don't expect. You get anti-systemic votes. It's not easy to explain. There are contradictions. The same in Europe. So we have results that we did not expect. I can explain that saying that it's the lack of trust. So we have an opportunity to change the world. And may I just say, since I'm at the Ethereal Summit, that I have been traveling the world, trying to understand the technology. And I was in London recently, and I was in a different space, not that nice. Everybody was talking about the prices, the tokens, and how to make money. It was like so intense that full of artists trying to keep all the copyrights on the blockchain so that they can be rewarded when somebody is using them for content. And they were talking about blockchain to change the world, to make it a better place. So this is my approach. I understand the hype, I understand money will be made, and there's going to be a lot of money there, maybe a lot of scams also. But the potential for me is that you can have a cause to change and transform the world with this technology. I think for us, we have to rethink everything. For example, we have to rethink taxation. I know everybody hates taxation, but if we give some fees to the transactions, then probably we will make it legal, and then the government could start using it. I have to say that I came here also trying to figure out some answers to my concerns. One is, the presentation is here, so I'll find it, just a second. So this was the concentration of data. So now it's in the hands of a few companies. So with GDPR, we're trying to make sure that they respect the principles of who has the data, for what purpose, and also to have transparency for the data. So this is essential for us. I think that blockchain could be a solution. If you don't put the sensitive data on the blockchain, just the hashes, then this could be a solution. And also for Europe, you are helping a lot everybody to harmonize what they do about the data regulations that we have. So this was for AI. I talked about this. And this was the Draghi thing. So this was the cover that concerned me the most. So I was thinking, are we trying to support a global currency that all the transactions are registered and one day the government can actually go back and find everything about us? So this is one of my concerns with this technology. I know there are options not to have that. And I know that most politicians like to control everything. But from asking me that, you know, this is a currency that can be used for legal activities till this, and having everything record, I told them this is the worst idea for criminals. If you're a criminal, if you want to do something illegal, do not use Bitcoin. So the first meetings I had in Brussels, there were people asking me if they should, if I should actually take permission from the ECB to be talking like this. The second thing they asked me if it's right for me to support something that, technology that is a CIA technology. If it's CIA, it's a very good technology, but you know, it's a code, you cannot control the code, people can use it. I do believe that there is also another challenge here. So this is about the resolution. I can send you this of how we work. This is where we are at, actually. Everybody talks about blockchain. I have hundreds of requests every day from blockchain experts. I would say we need to clear the noise a bit in this field. Because if something goes bad, then it's not going to be easy for us to support it more. This is the observatory that we're working on. I do believe we need to rethink the future and regain trust. And of course, as I said, have a cause for everything we do, clear guidelines, be able to remove friction and also fight corruption, to decentralize and secure storage. I can give you my short definition of what blockchain is. So the shortest I can say is decentralized distributed databases. But of course, it's peer-to-peer transaction, this transfer of value through transfer of information. And that's why I think it can actually be a revolution. If you remember when we started with the internet, it was just transfer of information, completely centralized. And now we talk about having wallets on your phones and exchanging value. I think this shows the potential that we have. So if we are here and if you were all politicians, and I would ask how many of you have e-wallets? How many of you have e-wallets? This is not the case. So I would say like 2 or 3 people would have e-wallets. So one of the problems we have is politicians trying to regulate without understanding the technology quite well. So we have to take it slow. I need your insight, your input. I think there is actually huge potential. When we had Uber 3 or 4 years ago, a lot of people in the parliament don't know what it is. So, and they don't like it. They don't like shared economy. It disrupts the thinking of the traditional way we do politics. So now we have the disruption of disruptors. Actually, I think it would be an excellent idea if somebody would disrupt Uber and find a solution to remove the platforms, the intermediaries of these platforms, and give back control to the citizens. So this is what we're trying to do. We try to also lead by example. We try to think out of the box and to support everything that you do. And it's for good, so positive disruption. And I don't know if there is time, but I think I would like Jeremy to be here and help me, maybe to take some questions instead of me talking too much. Thank you. He forgot about me. Ah, you didn't.
Hey, Eva.
Hi.
Oh, sorry. Hey, Eva, let me ask you a quick question. How did you first find out about Bitcoin?
Yes, I thought I almost replied that, but I didn't actually say that. It was when our Minister of Finance, there were some leaks about how he planned to leave 2015, to leave the control of central banks, because we were very close to a Grexit in Greece. And he was talking about hacking all our accounts, all the accounts of the Greek citizens' deposits, and transfer them into a digital currency to leave the control of the central bank. If the government does that, it's a bit scary. But I thought it was a revolutionary idea, and I started to explore a bit the potential of that, and this is how it started.
So when you look at regulatory landscapes today and the attitudes of politicians versus your experience through the Greek crisis and the risks of centralization, what attitudes do you see?
Well, I see the resistance. There is a lot of resistance. And unfortunately, misperceptions, because you know that the nice titles are crypto anarchy taking over, or a technology that will disrupt everything, the traditional system. We don't need politicians, I wish, but all of that creates a resistance that I didn't expect. If you start to talk about the potential and how you remove friction, because we failed to protect our citizens after the crisis, to listen. And what needs to be done, I think, is to clear the message a bit.
Cool. Now, one of the things that people in one last question, and we'll open up. One thing that maybe is a little bit different in Europe than in America is how the European countries get to set their own policies, but also conform to the EU. And how do you see that affecting the adoption of blockchain and cryptocurrencies through Europe?
Well, actually, this is a problem that we have in Europe in general. So we have different parts of legislation that the responsibilities of the member state, and then we have some central regulations. We're moving really fast. You're doing an excellent work with the observatory, trying to identify best cases and solutions, and thank you for that. I do believe we will manage to set some principles. So GDPR is exactly that. It's principles that we are basing all our legislation. And due to that, you can have different member states, different approaches. Some might want to support the shipping solutions, some might want to support governmental solutions or fintech solutions. This is the freedom we have in Europe.
Cool.
My question perhaps be a little repetitious. Would you please share how you read the politicians and other constituencies in Europe in regulating this environment, the cryptocurrencies as well as the blockchain technology? Would you share how the atmosphere in Europe is, how you see it from the top?
The good thing is that not many understand it. That's a good thing. And from the ones that do understand it, there are some that are very worried about the currencies, but they're very positive about blockchain as an infrastructure to change every sector. Currency. But we are open to explore everything. And I wouldn't say there is resistance from politics.
Do we have any more questions from the audience?
Yeah, one more. I'm interested if you could compare and contrast the regulatory environment between the EU and what you're seeing develop currently in America with the SEC.
So the question was, in case the mic wasn't picking up properly, the difference between the regulatory environment in Europe versus America.
Well, as I securities, I think it's 25% of the whole token world, but 75% are utilities. And I think it's an excellent tool for crowdfunding, the ICOs, because when you an excellent tool to create and to get liquidity for an idea that you might have, and if it goes well, you have possible returns, but you don't get equity. So the approach is to explore it. I think we're going to have a couple of years sandboxes for this technology, but we will not go just securities, everything. And I actually think that in US they are reconsidering.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Eva. Congratulations. I have a question. We have a kind of a regulatory war inside of Europe now. We have Estonia, Malta, Gibraltar, Switzerland, and I'm Brazilian, so we are opening companies in Estonia just with ICOs. How European community see this kind of a regulatory war? Because the legislation in Gibraltar is one, in Malta is another one. Switzerland is a little bit harder, but there is. For us, we just say, okay, there's no European legislation.
So just so everyone can try and hear the question, I think what you were saying is you see different jurisdictions like Gibraltar, Malta, and Switzerland, Estonia, creating their own little enclaves of regulation, and how does that affect the broader adoption and the bigger picture?
Well, what we do now, the resolution is about to pass in about a month, and it seems to have big support. So this will set the basis for common and harmonized regulation. In Europe, we give the freedom to member states to decide in several cases how they want to have their policy, what they want to support. But I can assure you that, like in a couple of years, we're going to have a more harmonized environment. We have the Observatory of Blockchain. We're going to have an ICOs observatory, and we have at least an initial resolution. So there's going to be upcoming legislation soon. When this takes over, then the member states sooner or later will.
Quick question. Do you ever foresee a government like the United States or European Union making their own blockchain currency? Like, could this be a possibility?
Well, as I said, we have to reconsider everything, especially the tax system. I don't know if having a centralized government, having decentralization applications would be the best case scenario. But there are some cases that we examine. And actually, I'm very positive, as you see, I think, to this maybe experiment. So we're going to try to find ways to use the currencies. And then if we manage to find a way to get fees or taxes through a currency, this could also be a very interesting idea. So AI start taking our jobs away, we will try to find a way to give to the people that need the most. So if we could use blockchain solutions to do that, from transaction fees, I think this could make it more legitimate, and this could give it a different use in Europe. But I think some states will explore that.
Hey, well, I think we're about out of time. So let's please give it up for Eva and all the work she's done for our community at the political and regulatory level.
Thanks. Thank you.